Welcome back to the deep dive. I hope you're ready to do a little bit of a time travel today.
Oh,
We are transporting ourselves right here to the immediate present, February 2026.
it's a it's a really fascinating time to be looking at the global economy, you
It
know.
is, but today we aren't looking at the whole globe. We're zooming in on a situation that feels like it was ripped straight out of a cyberpunk novel.
But it's not.
Not at all. It's just hard, cold, undeniable economics. We're looking at China.
Specifically, we're looking at a collision. I mean, imagine a slow-motion car crash between demographics and technology. That's what's happening in Beijing right now.
That is a vivid image. And to help us navigate this wreckage, we're working off a really comprehensive analysis by Simone McCarthy for CNN.
Right. It was published just yesterday, Valentine's Day 2026.
The headline is China's Robotic Solution to a Shrinking Workforce.
And I have to say, the word solution in that headline is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
It really is, because the premise here is it's deceptively simple. China is running out of people.
Or, to be more specific, they're running out of working-age people.
The birth rate has hit historic lows. The population is aging faster than almost any society in history.
And the government is realizing that their traditional levers, the stuff they usually pull to fix things, they just aren't working anymore.
Right. They've tried the cash handouts, the tax breaks.
And now they're pivoting hard. And the strategy they've landed on is to, well, replace the humans they don't have with machines they can build.
It sounds like science fiction. But the stakes here are so incredibly real. We're not just talking about GDP percentages or trade deficits.
No. We're talking about whether the entire pension system collapses.
Yeah.
We're talking about who's going to take care of grandma when she's 90.
And frankly, if you read between the lines of the source material, we're talking about the legitimacy of the Communist Party itself.
Absolutely. They have staked their entire reputation on economic stability. If this bet fails and the economy tanks because there aren't enough workers, that social contract just fractures.
So let's unpack this. We have to start with the why, the demographic cliff.
Right. I think most people have heard the headlines that China's population is shrinking, but I don't think people realize just how steep the drop-off is.
It is precipitous. You have to remember, for 30 years, China had what economists call a demographic dividend.
A massive surplus of young, cheap labor.
Exactly. That was the engine that powered the world's factory.
That was the era of made in China being on literally everything you bought.
And that engine is stalling, the labor force is dwindling, and at the same time, the number of retirees drawing pensions is exploding.
It's the classic inverted pyramid. Too many people at the top needing support.
And not nearly enough people at the bottom holding them up.
But surely the government saw this coming. I mean, they have the best data in the world on their own people.
Oh, they absolutely saw it coming. And the source material details what you might call a laundry list of desperation over the last few years.
They've been throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks.
Pretty much.
I remember reading about some of this. They tried paying people to have kids, right? They did. Cash handouts to parents. They offered pretty significant tax incentives.
They even changed marriage laws recently just to remove some of the bureaucratic hurdles.
Anything to make it easier for people to couple up and start families.
And the result of all that?
The data from just last month, January 2026, shows it failed. None of it stopped the slide.
It turns out you can't just throw money at people to convince them to have more kids.
And not once a society reaches a certain level of development, no. It's incredibly hard.
Which brings us to an expert view in the article, Stuart Gittell-Baston.
From the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, a demography expert.
And he didn't exactly mince words about the situation.
You know, he was quite stark. He said that if China continues with the status quo, trying to run a 21st century economy with a collapsing population structure, it faces a massive crisis.
The math just doesn't work.
It doesn't. The pension system can't handle it. The healthcare system can't handle it.
And that looming failure is what triggered the pivot we're talking about today. The logic seems to be, if you can't make more people,
you have to make the people you do have infinitely more productive. Or you remove the people from the equation entirely.
This is where we enter the era of the dark factory.
Yes.
I have to say, I was really struck by this term in the reading, dark factories. It sounds so ominous, almost dystopian.
It does sound like something from a horror movie, but practically speaking, it's just extreme efficiency.
So what is it?
It's just a manufacturing facility that operates with zero human intervention. You have robotic arms welding, painting, assembling.
And because there are no humans inside, you don't need to turn the lights on.
You don't, because robots don't need to see. They use sensors and data streams. They don't need light. They don't need air conditioning. They don't need lunch breaks.
That image is just wild to me. Just acres of machines humming away in pitch blackness, building EVs or solar panels.
And the scale is already massive.
Hmm.
I mean, we are not talking about a few experimental prototypes here.
Yep.
The International Federation of Robotics reported that back in 2024, so 2 years ago, China was already home to more than
Half of all industrial robots installed worldwide.
in the entire world. It's by far the world's largest market for this tech.
And that's the secret sauce behind that trade surplus everyone talks about.
It has to be. People wonder, how does China pump out solar panels and EVs so cheaply?
Well, if you don't pay the robot a salary and it works 24/7,
Your unit costs plummet.
there's an interesting historical irony here that the article points out, and I think this is really key to understanding the mindset in Beijing.
Okay.
Do you remember the Made in China 2025 plan?
Oh, vaguely. That was that big industrial roadmap from back in 2015, right? The plan to move up the value chain.
Yes, and here's the kicker. 2015 was the exact same year Beijing officially scrapped the one-child policy.
Oh, that's right. That is a fascinating convergence when you think about it.
Isn't it? You have one policy saying, we need high-tech dominance.
And another one effectively admitting we don't have enough babies.
Exactly. Bert Hoffman from the National University of Singapore points this out. He argues that while the demographic crunch might not have been the sole driver of that policy back in 2015, automation has now become the script.
The script. What does he mean by that?
It's the narrative. It's the story the government uses to calm everyone down. Don't worry about the population decline. It won't matter because the robots will save us.
Productivity will skyrocket.
Exactly. It's a powerful narrative. It tells people there's a plan.
But there's a technological leap happening now that goes beyond just robotic arms bolting doors onto cars.
This is where we get into the uncanny valley.
We have to talk about humanoids.
The article mentions there are over 140 companies in China right now developing humanoid robots.
And the government is throwing subsidies at them like confetti. It's a massive top-down push. Very similar to what they did with the EV market a decade ago.
But let's be real for a second. When I see these humanoids on the news or, in my social media feed, they're usually doing something kind of ridiculous.
Like dancing in formation.
Yes. Or the promotional boxing matches. I saw one of those.
It feels a bit like a circus trick.
Yeah.
Look, the robot can do the waltz. It's hard to take it seriously as an economic savior.
Great.
It's easy to dismiss it as a gimmick. But the developers in the article, they insist the dancing is just marketing. It demonstrates balance and agility.
So the real goal isn't a dancing robot.
The real goal is a robot that can walk into a messy warehouse, step over a box, pick up a specific item, and sort it.
Because a standard robotic arm is great if the car part is always in the exact same spot on the assembly line, but the real world is messy. It's unstructured.
Exactly. Our world is built for humans. We have stairs, we have door handles, cluttered floors.
Yeah.
If you want a robot to work in a human environment, the humanoid form is actually the most efficient shape.
So they're targeting tasks like sorting, handling hazardous materials, quality inspection.
And they've already piloted these in logistics hubs and science labs. The goal is to keep that world's factory status, even as labor costs rise.
If human labor gets too expensive because there are fewer humans, you just swap in the android.
Basically.
But here's the pivot in the article that really caught me off guard. We usually think of robots as factory workers, blue-collar machines.
Right.
But China is looking at robots as caregivers.
This is the most critical and maybe the most culturally challenging part of the whole plan.
We can't talk about China's future without talking about aging. As of right now, adults over 60 make up 23% of the population.
That's nearly a quarter of the entire country.
And UN projections suggest that could hit 50% by the year 2100.
50%. Just imagine a society where every other person you meet is over 60 years old.
It's mind-boggling, and this is where the legacy of the one-child policy really comes back to bite them.
You talk about the 4-2-1 problem.
Exactly. 4 grandparents, 2 parents, 1 child. When those parents and grandparents get old, that single child has to bear the entire burden of care.
There are no siblings to share the cost or the time or the emotional load.
It's impossible math. One working-age person cannot physically care for 6 aging relatives and hold down a full-time job.
So the government guidelines are now explicitly calling for humanoids to fill that gap. They want robots to act as nurses and companions.
I'm trying to picture this. Is it a robot bringing you tea or helping you out of bed?
Both. And it's not just independent robots walking around. They're heavily investing in exoskeleton robots and muscle suits.
Like Iron Man for grandma.
Essentially, wearable robotics that help elderly citizens walk, lift objects, and just maintain their independence longer.
So they don't need a human nurse as early.
And the state media is pushing this hard, right?
Oh, they are. They were trying to socialize the idea. You see these robots on variety shows, in news segments.
They're trying to warm the public up to the idea that your future caregiver might be a machine, so you don't freak out when one walks into your hospital room.
That feels like some serious social engineering. But it connects back to the money, too. Ken Zhu from the Economist Intelligence Unit makes a really sharp point about pensions.
He does. The pension system is underfunded. The only way to keep it afloat is if the remaining workers are just incredibly productive.
So the theory is, if I have a robot army helping me work, I generate so much wealth that the state can afford to tax me enough to pay for millions of retirees, even though there are fewer of us working.
That is the tech dividend. They're trying to swap the demographic dividend growth from having lots of people for the tech dividend growth from having better machines.
But there is a massive catch.
There's always a catch. We call it the double bind, or sometimes the race against time.
Break that down for us. What is the race?
It's a race between how fast the population ages and how fast the technology improves. Bert Hoffman cites these OECD scenarios,
Okay.
and they suggest China can stay ahead of the curve until about the 2070s.
So they have a 40 or 50-year runway where the tech might save them.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
But here's the double bind. Making a country more productive with automation doesn't necessarily mean more jobs.
It usually means fewer people doing more work. If I install a dark factory, I don't need the 500 guys who used to work on the assembly line.
And domestic experts estimate that AI and robots could affect around 70% of China's entire manufacturing sector.
70%. That is an enormous slice of the workforce.
It is. So here's the immediate danger. Long term, you need the robots because you won't have the workers.
But short term,
Short term, you still have millions of workers who need jobs right now. If the robots replace them too fast, before the demographic decline really hits bottom, you get mass unemployment.
so you have this awkward, dangerous transition period. You're displacing workers who don't have anywhere else to go.
Exactly. Guozhen He from the University of Hong Kong warns about this specifically. If you have millions of military-age men out of work because a dark factory took their jobs,
That creates political instability, and for the Communist Party, instability is the ultimate enemy.
it's like they're building the plane while flying it.
Or asking the robot to build the plane while the robot is also flying it.
That's a good analogy. So, the big question is, how do they avoid the crash?
What are the experts saying? Is there a safety net?
They say it requires a massive investment in reskilling.
We hear that term a lot in the West, too. Learn to code. But what does it actually look like here?
It means moving workers from repetitive manual tasks, the stuff robots are perfect at, to managing the automated systems.
You stop being the welder, you become the technician who fixes the welding robot.
But let's be realistic. Not everyone can make that jump. You can't just take a 50-year-old assembly line worker and turn them into a robotics engineer overnight.
No, you can't. Which is why the experts are also emphasizing a stronger social security system. You need a cushion for the people who fall through the cracks.
And they've already started tweaking the system. The source mentions they raised the retirement age for the first time in 2024.
That was controversial, wasn't it?
Very. People were not happy. But it's part of the package. You make people work longer, you try to teach them new skills, and you hope the robot productivity kicks in fast enough to pay for it all.
So, to summarize the experiment, China is trying to pull off the biggest economic pivot in history.
They're betting the house that technology can solve biology.
Philip O'Keefe from UNSW makes a sort of calming point, though. He notes that demographic decline is a slow burn. It's not an overnight collapse.
They have time to adjust.
But the margin for error is razor thin. It forces us to rethink what an economy even looks like. We're so used to the idea that growth equals more people buying more things.
Exactly. The entire modern economic model is built on population growth. China's trying to prove you can have growth with fewer people, provided your machines are good enough.
If it works, it changes everything, not just for China, but for everyone.
That's the bigger picture. Europe is aging, Japan is already old, even the US is seeing birth rates drop. We are all staring at the same cliff.
China is just the first one to jump off and try to build a parachute on the way down.
It is.
That leads me to a final, slightly provocative thought to leave our listeners with today. We spend so much time in the West worrying about robots taking our jobs.
It's the standard sci-fi fear Skynet. The Terminator, mass unemployment, a fear rooted in displacement. We worry about being replaced.
But in China's case, the robots might be the only thing keeping the economy and the elderly alive. It's a complete inversion of the narrative.
The robot isn't the enemy, it's the life support system. That is a profound shift in perspective. If this works, the robot becomes the caretaker of humanity.
So the question is China building a blueprint for the rest of us? Or are they creating a society where human labor becomes obsolete before the humans are actually gone?
Are we building a world that doesn't need us in order to save us?
Heavy stuff to think about. That's it for this deep dive. We've unpacked the dark factories, the dancing humanoids, and the pension crisis.
It's a story we'll need to watch for the next 50 years.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, and thanks for exploring the future with us.
Goodbye.
Catch you on the next one.